Do you know where gaps and blind spots in your customer journeys are creating unnecessary friction for prospective account holders? And as a result, your financial brand is losing millions in loans and deposits. Well, today we're going to dig into some big blind spots, some big friction points that we've uncovered during a recent website secret shopping study on today's episode of the Banking on Digital Growth podcast.
You're listening to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast.
Welcome back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. I'm James Robert Lay, founder and CEO of the Digital Growth Institute, where we help financial brands uncover their biggest marketing and sales blind spots so that they can quickly stop losing loans and deposits. Now, before we get into today's episode, I want to invite you to be one of 100 financial brands that I'll be guiding in 2025 through our 2025 Digital Growth Accelerator program. To be clear, the 2025 Digital Growth Accelerator program is only for growth-minded financial brand marketing, sales, and leadership teams that want to thrive and not just survive in 2025. If this sounds like you, if this sounds like your team, text me. Text me right now. This is my cell phone, 832-549-5792. And let's just simply have a conversation to see if this is a good fit for you, if this is a good fit for your team. Now, joining me for today's conversation is Audrey Kanata, operations lead here at the Digital Growth Institute. Welcome to the show, Audrey. It is always good to share time and talk about what we are finding, what you are seeing, what you are finding in our website secret shopping studies. Welcome to the show, Audrey. It is great to share time with you today.
Thank you, James Robert. Excited to be here today.
Lots of secret shopping in progress, lots coming on board. Lots of learning, and we are going to continue to share those learnings with you who are watching, who are listening, so that you can take these ideas and insights and apply them within your own organization so that you too can stop losing loans and deposits, just as we are identifying that there are many financial brands who are struggling with that today based upon blind spots that they have in their website and in their customer journeys. So with that in mind, Audrey, before we get too far into today's show, what is good in your world right now, personally or professionally, is your pick to get started on a positive note?
Yeah, so I just got back from a weekend in Oregon, Portland, visiting a friend who moved up there a few years ago and decided to take some days off alone and spend some time up there. And it was beautiful. It was nice to get away, spent a lot of time outdoors, did a 4-mile hike, saw some beautiful waterfalls, and we didn't have a ton of big plans, and I told her going in, let's just chill. I just want to relax and hang out with you and your family, and I just wanted to get away. It's been with school starting, this, man. It's just been back to back busy days, and so it was great to just unplug for a minute and kind of go with no expectations other than relax and enjoy a different part of the country, different culture.
It's always good to hear of your travels and what you're learning, what you're seeing, because as we talked about on a recent episode, seeing is the first step for change. It's the first step of human transformation. And I think when you travel, when you get out of your environment, when you get out of your quote unquote your comfort zone, you're always going to see things, and you're going to come back just a little bit different, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of what my intention going in there. While there is a lot of wonderful, tourist things to do and different places that you visit, I really was just curious about the culture. I mean, I went with my friend to walk her kids to school and pick them up. I mean, we did the whole deal. I just wanted to see how different things were, and they were, and it was just kind of a breath of fresh air.
And I think that breath of fresh air and seeing things differently, you're getting the same experience without having to leave home, without having to hop on an airplane, when we facilitate website secret shopping studies for financial brands. And I know one right now that is currently in progress, but you're getting some real good learnings from is around a personal loan application. And the key patterns that are coming up to the top from this particular shopping experience, this particular customer journey, and really the blind spots that are costing this financial brand hundreds of millions of dollars in personal loans when you extrapolate that over the course of a year. What what are you seeing in in the in the thick data? And we've talked about thick data being a smaller data set, but much
Mhm.
deeper in regards to why people are doing what they're doing, why they're making the choices, why their behavior is the way their behavior is. What are we seeing here to begin with?
So this particular study was a little bit different than our regular secret shopping studies because we looked at two different parts of the buying journey. We looked at the awareness consideration phase, and we also looked at the purchase stage. We wanted to see how those two experiences worked together and what insights we could use from one and the other. So this one was a little bit different and much deeper, but it was really interesting and fascinating to see how the shopping experience affects them during the application experience, and being able to pinpoint and see, okay, because something in that shopping experience maybe didn't line up, it affected or it caused friction in the application. And so what are some things that we can get out of that to then kind of be a little bit more proactive in our messaging up front? So that was for me, that's been the biggest difference, is really seeing those two pieces of the experience and how they work together.
That's a good point. And I know with this particular study focused on the application,
Yes.
the complexity was something that came up with participants in this study. The complexity that would then lead to friction, the friction that would then lead to abandonment. And that abandonment is where this particular organization is losing hundreds of millions of dollars in personal loans. And it's fascinating because I know that we have some prospects too that are really curious about shopping their application experience as well. What are you seeing when it came to this particular application experience? Because it was creating friction and people were did anyone say that they would complete out of this application experience?
Well, none were actually going to get started start the application process.
Okay,
So
let's
because
pause.
we were bringing them through,
That's an important
so
point.
yeah, so because we were bringing them through the entire experience, we stopped after we looked at the campaign landing page and we did the different competitor benchmarks. We stopped and paused and asked the users, would they move forward with this particular financial brand? Yes or no? If not, what would they do next? Would they call and reach out? Would they go to a competitor? So we got all of that data, and yeah, 0% were going to move forward at that point with the information that they had with the application.
Okay, so that's an important point. Like I said, just to pause on that and let that just sit for a minute because this particular organization is driving paid traffic. So they're
Mhm.
spending money driving paid traffic to a landing page, of which in this cohort of secret shoppers who were in their ideal client profile that we went and we recruited, 0% felt confident to click the apply button to continue forward with the application. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correct on this.
That's correct. Yep. And then what we did from there on out is once they started the application, we walked them through each step and gave us feedback. If this wasn't a real test, or I'm sorry, if this wasn't a test and this was a real application, if at any point you would abandon this application and stop and quit due to some sort of confusion, friction, frustration, let us know. We could mark that and then continue on with the study. And so really the biggest insight that I found was the I would say the campaign landing page to application was a little bit jarring for users
Mm.
because this particular campaign landing page, the feedback that we got was there wasn't enough information about the product, about the loan.
Mm.
Users needed more, they had more questions, they needed more information. And so the get started button, the users expected that to go to a secondary page or to a contact or something to get more information, more details. What's the, what are my loan options? Like, what is my rate? Can I even qualify for this? But instead they were sent directly to the application. And that felt a little off for our users. Like, wait a minute. I'm not there yet. And it wasn't just a simple pre-qualification application. I mean, this was the full deal. This was the 15-minute application.
So the get started, the expectation based upon what these secret shoppers were perceiving and experiencing was they were going to go to a page with more information or a contact form, but they were not going to be asked to complete the full application, which was a 15-minute online application. Did anyone, because I know once again we were looking for where the drop-offs would have been. If this were not a test, would any of these secret shoppers made it through the entire experience?
Yes, a few of them did.
Okay.
Because, and I will say this, the mindset, once they got the application, our users at that point were just thinking about the application, just
Mm,
that experience. They were able to separate it from the shopping experience that they had just had.
mm.
And so at that point, they were just answering questions about the application itself. So the application itself didn't didn't score too terribly uh, badly. Definitely some areas of improvement for sure. So several of them felt like this was kind of a typical, normal application for the most part, what they would expect if they were ready and at that point.
Hey guys, I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation with Audrey, but I wanted to take a minute to tell you about the 2025 Digital Growth Accelerator program that we have launched, which is exclusively for growth minded financial brand marketing, sales, and leadership teams who want to thrive and not just survive in 2025. Now, if this sounds like you, text me right now, 832 549 5792, and let's have a conversation to see if this is a good fit because when you join the 2025 Digital Growth Accelerator program, we are going to assess your customer journey. We're going to figure out where you have big blind spots that are costing you loans and deposits, while at the same time, we're going to secret shop your website so that you can uncover unseen gaps that are costing you millions in loans and deposits. You're also going to learn how to develop a strategic growth plan through 12 classes that we have inside the Digital Growth University, plus four quarterly masterclass workshops are going to show you exactly what you need to do next to eliminate the big blind spots that we often see, typically within, most likely they're in your customer journey, so that you can continue to level up your loan and deposit growth every 90 days. And finally, here's the good news. You're not going to be taking this journey alone. You're not going to be taking this journey to optimize your customer journeys alone. That's because you're going to get accountability while expanding your network through monthly masterminds and an annual event that's going to bring together growth minded leaders who are all committed to connecting, learning, and growing together. So if you are ready to thrive and not just survive in 2025, text me right now, 832 549 5792. Let's get back to the conversation. Let's roll back for those before they got to the application, because I know some of the recommendations that we have and will be sharing are going to be around combining steps, reducing repetitive data entry, but I think really most importantly, micro commitments.
Yeah.
And I like the way that you communicate this. It's like going from speed dating to getting hitched,
Yes.
to seeing you at the altar and I just met you.
Right. And that was the feedback that we were getting. It was a little bit jarring, like why would you assume that I'm ready for this when I don't even know if I qualify? I don't even know if you're going to give me what I want. Why go through this process to then find out later this isn't going to work for me? that felt, and many of the most of the users felt like that was frustrating. That was a waste of time. I don't want to go through all of this. Okay, the application itself isn't terrible. There's some optimizations, yeah, but I don't even want to do this if I don't know or even have an idea
You know,
ahead of time.
in for this particular financial brand, we're going to double down on what we would call the shopping experience here to validate some hypothesis that we have, and we're going to run some additional, we'll call them top of the funnel pre-conversion shopping experiences to see, you know what, does the pattern match continue? Because if it does continue, then we know that for this particular organization, the greatest optimization, back to your point, isn't going to be within the application itself. It's going to get people to just start the application to begin with in the first
Yep.
place. And I know one of the points that you shared with me was explaining, we'll call it the, what are the expectations? What do I need? How long is this going to take me? What am I going to be asked? Because I know one of the friction points was the consent to contact section in the application itself. It was one of the very first points that someone saw when they did click the apply button. Once again, I want to reinforce that in this particular cohort, no one would have clicked the apply button to begin with. So everyone did click the apply button because it was a test, but this was a friction point for about 40% of the users in this particular situation.
I will be honest, this one surprised and just fascinated me. I think I texted you like immediately after, once we started getting, I mean, I think the first time I heard it, I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then it became a pattern. And I thought,
Mm,
wow, I didn't notice it, but this was, yes, it was on maybe page 2 or 3 of the application. The first few pages were consents, electronic consent, mobile consent, uh, all on different pages. And this particular consent was consent to contact, and basically saying, you give us consent to reach out to you via the phone number you provided, with a automated message, with an automated voicemail, so on and so on, to share news and products and whatnot. At that point, like you said, 40% of the people, that raised a red flag and they wanted to abandon. Like, I don't want anyone blowing up my phone. And
mm,
then several of them were thinking, why am I giving them this consent now when I don't even know if I'm going to be approved and get my loan? What if I get denied? Are they still going to be reaching out to me with all of, blasting me with all their marketing messages, even though I was denied? And so, yeah, 40% of people thought, no, pause. I don't like that. That's too much. And so in this case, maybe the optimization is ask it later on in the process, maybe not up front.
mhm.
Because why does any of that matter
That early
if
on.
that early on?
True. And it's a communication, and that's the thing, that's one of the macro patterns that we continuously see. Where there is friction, where there is frustration within a buying journey, within a customer journey, whether that's, we'll say, the shopping experience on a website, the application experience at the point of purchase digitally, or even within the onboarding experience for
Mhm.
new customers or new members at a credit union. Anytime there's friction, it's typically just a communication
Mhm.
issue. More deeply, it's an expectation issue, and the expectation hasn't been properly set as to
Right.
why you're asking this. And this is where being that annoying 5-year old kindergartner, well, why do you need this, like
Yeah.
why, in getting outside of our banker's brain and into the hearts and minds of people will go a long way. Because I know one of the other frustrating points what is around communication and consent and legality, uh the the length of the legal ease or the banker
Yes.
knees within this particular application.
I think people expect to see that. They expect to see the disclosures, especially from a bank. So it wasn't that this was surprising. I think in this case, it's more so the way it was presented on the page, the way it
Mm.
was communicated. It felt, that's what the users were expressing, is that it felt like it was too much, like it was over the top, unnecessary. Can we condense this down a little bit? I mean, I'm having to go on and scrolling down and then going to the second page of consents. It just felt like it was unnecessary. And again, this is in the very beginning of the application experience.
That's a fantastic point
I
because
don't even know that they've entered personal information at this point.
they had not, because I remember walking through this experience with you. So
Right.
context is so important here, because if we're asking for consent to contact before someone even begins, and then we're asking for them to complete all of this legalese, disclosures, disclaimer, there's friction that's been added, versus if you were to take that, move that to the back of the process, they've already committed to filling in their information, and then that would just feel like the next logical step for them to, oh, okay, I need to give you consent to contact, and oh, I need to read and review and sign these disclosures and these disclaimers. That makes a lot of sense. If we could actually take this to a whole other level, and before someone even enters into the application process, and I know that this is kind of another key finding, is what information do I need to bring to the table, or what information will I be asked? What does that order look like? Because it sets the expectation before someone even begins to apply in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had one uh in particular response who was so frustrated. It wasn't so much that they needed their driver's license because they had their, and I think a lot of people do have their driver's license number memorized, but they needed the expiration date. And that was so frustrating for them to have to stop and get the driver's license for the expiration. And again, most users are thinking, I understand my driver's license, number. I understand my social security number. I get all that. But then there was a few pieces that seemed, from the user's perspective, unnecessary. Um, and on top of that, that personal information actually had to be entered twice
Mm.
later on in the application, which was noted by almost all of the users that we talked to. And I get why they had to do it. Two different platforms. They were moving into the identity checking for identity.
Identity verification.
Thank you. Identity verification. So they had to do it again, but it was just like, I mean, everyone commented, "Oh my gosh, again, I just did all this."
But that begs the question, why would it not be possible to pass the identity information from, we'll just say, platform A over to platform B for identity verification?
Right.
Just a small, slight optimization, because all of these, every time we add a little point of friction, it increases the likelihood of abandonment. But then there's also the emotional side of this, which gets back to your previous point about, am I even going to be approved? It's like, why am I doing all of this work? What am I even what? Because that was one of the things. What am I going to be approved for? What's the
Yeah.
rate? What's the term? What's the amount? There was so much confusion, which is where I think for this particular example, no one was going to start the application process to begin with in the first place.
Yes. In fact, one of the patterns that we saw, so it wasn't until the very end of the application, the last step, where the user was prompted to input the loan amount that they were requesting. And it gave them a little bit of a window between, I don't know, $3,000 and $10,000, say. But nowhere else in the application or on the landing page did it even tell them what the loan amounts, what the options were for. And so one user, I remember, just I can hear him in my mind. he gets to the very end and it asks him to put the loan amount in, and he was like, wait, and I don't even think it registered in his mind until this moment, because he goes, wait a minute, I haven't I haven't even told him how much I want. And he was like scratching his head. I just did all of this. And like he was realizing it in real time that he
Mm.
just did all of this application and didn't even know if the amount was going to fall into his window that he needed.
It's a great point. And this is that pattern of communication. But the other pattern of communication was on the opposite end of the spectrum. So you have the what happens once someone completes the entire process. And there was some pain, friction, frustration, which, okay, great. You have a converted application, but the pain, friction, and frustration that comes at this point in the process is going to directly impact whether or not that this particular personal loan is actually funded. What
Yeah, I mean they didn't know. When they completed the end of the application, it just took them to a thank you page that said, um, if you've completed this application, a banker will review and get back with you in a day, 24 hours, um, which is vague. Well, for one, I think leading with the question, or leading with if you completed this form. Well, I did. That's how I'm at this thank you page. It's because I just completed the form.
right. Yeah.
If you completed this form, a banker will sign and get back in touch with you, something along those lines. And at this point, so it's 24 hours. Nobody knows the loan amount. Nobody knows the rate. Nobody knows the term length. If they've been approved, nothing. That's a lot of work to go through for uncertainty.
And I think that's the key theme and the key takeaway here. It's uncertainty, it's confusion, and the antithesis to confusion is clarity. So, what's the opportunity to provide clarity here? Let's just say post conversion. We're not even onboarding yet. We're not even approved, and we're not even funding. But you can still provide clarity for those that made it all the way through to this point, so that they're not left scratching their heads, wondering what did I just do? Because buyer's remorse is real. Like, what did I just apply for? How could this organization provide someone who completed clarity moving forward, even into just waiting into the next steps?
I mean, I feel like my recommendations are things that should be done early on in the experience.
Mm.
So people do have that expectation ahead of time. But if we're just looking at this, they hit submit. Um, Honestly, I would have someone pick up the phone within an hour or two and call that person who just submitted an application for a loan. Give them an idea of what to expect.
But
Client.
it's interesting though. You're leaning into the human experience here, because of course you could have verbiage and messaging on the completion page that could be optimized. That's a quick and easy win. You could have email, you could have text, but why lean into the human experience at this point? Just having a simple phone call, within an hour or two. And why is speed so important?
I think phone calls, well, for one, emails get lost. I know my my personal email inbox is just a garbage can. Um, Text messages are all right. Not bad. I mean, I think that's the next best form. To set the expectation. I just think a phone call when somebody when somebody commits to your organization or your business and they've just spent 15 minutes going through this loan application to give you business,
Mm.
it's the least you can do to pick up the phone, affirm their decision, make them feel confident about what they did. We see you. We've got you taken care of. We value you. I may not have an answer for you right this second,
Mm.
but I will soon.
And I think I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to be like, well, what if we invest resources to people making these phone calls, but no one answers? What if we just leave a voicemail?
Then you leave a voicemail. I probably won't answer my phone when they call either, but I'm going to know that they called
You're going to know
and I'm
that.
going to see the voicemail and I'm going to know that they cared. I probably, if it was me, I don't answer my phone normally unless I know who it is.
And that's where there's an opportunity, though, to add some automation, because you can automate the outbound call.
There you go.
A, B, you can also automate just a voicemail drop into a voicemail inbox, because if we're going off the hypothesis or the assumption that no one's going to answer, or a small percent of people are going to answer, guess what? The voicemail is a differentiator. It's just another communication touch point in a much larger, more macro customer journey. And that's exactly what we're doing with these website secret shopping studies, is we're looking for the blind spots that take away from the overall experience before, in this particular case, before someone even becomes a customer.
Right.
And so, in just
Right.
brief review, rolling this back, personal loan shopping experience, the framing was someone's in the market for a personal loan. They see an ad because this particular organization is running paid traffic to a landing page. So they go to the landing page, and in this cohort, 0% felt like they had the courage to commit to click the apply button and continue forward. But because it was a test, they did go ahead and continue. We saw some abandonment friction points within the application, but even once they completed the application, then there was still confusion that didn't make them feel good about their decision to apply to begin with in the first place. So lots of areas for optimization within each one of these micro journeys, micro experiences that when combined make up the macro. For someone who is watching or listening, Audrey, what would be your recommendation for them right now? Something small that they could do, an action that they can take right now to improve, to build upon what we've learned through these experiences here.
Go fill out an application for a loan at your organization. And I don't know, maybe you can get in touch with somebody to get a test, sandbox page. I don't know. If I were you, I would go look at that application and I would try it myself the best I could without having to get your credit checked and all of that. Take a look at it and ask yourself, if you were in this position, if you were applying for a loan, is there friction? Is there frustration? The people we've spoken to, James Robert, and I know that you can attest to this, so many financial brand leaders, marketers, executives have never filled out any application of any sorts on their website.
And as a result, they have blind spots that are costing them millions in loans and deposits. And many times in this particular case, there are small little optimizations that would improve the overall customer journey, the customer experience. Audrey, this has been such a great conversation. Thanks for sharing your ongoing learnings from what you're seeing, facilitating these website secret shopping studies. It's always good to learn and to grow together.
It is. Each one of these studies teaches me something different. So I love doing them and I love sharing the feedback with you.
And if you are watching, listening, you want to secret shop your website, send me a text 832-549-5792 or text Audrey 415-579-3002. As always, be well, do good, be the light.